Oh, that's Alberto Aguilar. Raise.
Yes, yes, right here.
Yeah.
This is the work that I was originally invited to show for the first iteration of the exhibition. Um, I was asked to make some sort of signage for the gate, for the fence, the entrance of 6018 North. And I right away, I mean, because of the title of the exhibition, which was Living Architecture, and it being also about immigration and immigrant artists, I right away thought of the word influx,
Mm-hmm.
like in relationship to initially in relationship to the to influx of immigrants into the United States throughout the entire history of the United States in different waves. So, but it's also a play on words, playing with the idea that the word or if something being in flux in a perpetual state of change. And when so I made this super long sign that said influx, and I thought it would be nice to add the extra I's and the extra X's at either end to sort of give it this reverberating quality, and then this sort of zigzag form. But I made the sign and I kept it all intact as a really long sign because initially my idea was to put it on the front of the fence. But when I got there, and being in conversation with Trisha, I realized that if I folded the sign in, something would happen. It would change the whole read of the sign. So what happened was, so it's fully intact. We did think about cutting it, but then I realized that it could all stay together and fold through the fence. And so what happens is that when you're at the entrance, it says in, and as you go through the exhibition and maybe you come out, it says flux. And so I like that idea of it being read in two different ways, depending whether you're entering or exiting, but it always says the same thing. You just never fully know. But also it did something where it made the sign, it activated the sign. So the sign itself is in flux. So, and then I ended up titling it Entre, which looks like the word enter with the E and the R flipped. But it's actually, in Spanish, it means between. And I like sort of for meaning to emerge as I go along, as I make a work. I usually don't come in with an idea and then make a work around it. So it was really nice that the work then became sort of a stand-in for my position as a first generation immigrant. Me being in this perpetual state of this in-between state of not feeling like I belong here fully, and not feeling like I belong. I'm Mexican American, so not feeling that I belong with Mexicans, not feeling that I belong with Americans. So always existing in this in-between state. So that was the idea of this work. It's I think it could speak to a lot of people, but it's also very autobiographical, which is a big part of my work as well.
And it also became the title of the show at the Cultural Center, where we switched it. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah. And then very, very quickly, the difference here in this sign are the colors. First of all, we switched up the colors. And I couldn't do the folding in of the sign or the folding of the sign, because if I folded it behind that wall, no one would see it. So I came up with the idea to actually cut the sign, this time cut the sign, and put part of it outside. So it's hanging actually on the opposite side of that window, and it actually, when it's windy, it moves. So it's kind of like a joke of like putting the word actually on the outside, and letting people be able to read this all as one continuous thing, part of it being outside, part of it being inside, but also seeing them as separate things. But again, activating the sign so that the sign is sort of like has a living quality. And then the last thing I'll say is that I actually work with a sign painter, these sign painters that make grocery store signs. So they actually made this for me. I usually draw it up and I send it to the sign painter, and then they'll send me like a drawing, and then they'll paint it for me. And I like the sort of immediacy of the mark making that they use. They're kind of masters in making lettering. So there's a whole tradition of this lettering, which tends to be used in you know, like it's used a lot in Mexican grocery stores here in Chicago.